ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
Let me say something. Boys. Stefano Stock, we're up, baby! Yeah!
If the NRL was a movie, Reece Walsh is the star. And when Stefano Utoikamano called the Broncos stuck up, the scriptwriters worked overtime. So if Walsh is the Broncos' leading man, his supporting cast have plenty of storylines of their own. The club breaking a 19-year premiership drought, Ben Hunt with redemption 10 years on, a team overcoming injuries at key moments, and a leader who was almost sacked earlier this year. It writes itself. Add to that the NRLW Premiership earlier in the fixture, and it's a good day to be a Queenslander. On the other side of the story is the Melbourne Storm, who led at half-time, only to come up short for a second year in a row. Hollywood, eat your heart out. I'm Poppy Penny, and this is ABC Sport Daily. Quentin Hull called the 2025 NRL Grand Final for ABC, and Q, I feel like if we boil it all down, the difference for the Broncos between winning and losing came down to two words: Reece and Walsh. Under immense pressure, he delivered a Clive Churchill medal-winning performance. What is it about this guy in big games?
He's certainly stepped up in the last couple of months, Poppy, and he's had this reputation for being either brilliant or a liability because of the way that he plays his football. And we spent the majority of his near on 100-game career waiting to see, well, what balances out today? Has he made more good plays than bad? Because you just have to accept that the bad plays will be there, but he produces some magnificent football to the extent that, you know, my co-colleague in Brisbane, Billy Moore, coined the phrase of rocks and diamonds, but there've been many more diamonds than rocks in the last couple of months. We saw last night he was not only able to do it in attack, but he made some telling try-saving tackles as well last night, which you've got to do when you've got the number one on your back and your fullback. You have to have that defensive part of the game.
Katoa! He's gone through! Reece Walsh to save the game!
It was his 95th game in the NRL last night. He's only 23 years of age. It's a whole new conversation, Poppy, as to, well, why did we see him at his best at the back end of the season? And part of that is wrapped up in the drama of the back end of the game last night with Adam Reynolds, the halfback and captain, limping off with a calf injury. And almost as soon as Reynolds was in the arms of the trainers last night, that's when Walsh hit overdrive and won the grand final for his team.
Yeah, absolutely. So Walsh kind of shaped the game with his efforts with and without the ball, as you say. And then key injuries toward the end threatened to derail all of that. Adam Reynolds with, as you say, what looked like a pretty serious calf injury. Ben Hunt then copped a really nasty concussion. So how did this team, off the back of, I guess, Walsh heroics, overcome all of that and then overcome the Melbourne Storm?
Well, it's linked in to the coach, who we'll speak about in a moment, in Michael Maguire. And it must be noted as well that the Storm played the majority of the game without Jack Howarth, who had a groin injury at the back end of the season. He fought his way back into the team, but that flared again. And Alec McDonald, he actually dislocated his elbow, had it relocated and strapped up, and he played out the back end of the game. So there's heroes on that side of things as well. But yeah, I'll never forget the imagery of Anna Reynolds not even being able to walk to the bench. He had to be picked up by two trainers. So there was that scenario. And of course, Ben Hunt then goes in to play at number 7, as he has done while Reynolds had been out at the back end of the year. But what happens to Ben Hunt? He finds himself in the wrong spot in a tackle.
It's Hunt down and hurt him. Back play, quick play the ball. Munster gives it left to Wishart. Wishart's tackled. Ben Hunt's, he's gone, he's got up, but he's on wobbly legs.
That was him done because it was right at the end of the game. So these two experienced halves, you know, the 35-year-old Hunt, the 35-year-old Reynolds, off at the end of this game. And Brisbane, by that stage, was in desperate defensive mode, having already scored 3 tries to nothing in the second half to get the lead.
Ben Hunt was a real redemption story in this grand final. 10 years after the drop catch in the 2015 decider, and I think even the staunchest of New South Welsh people might have cracked a smile to see him get a premiership ring last night. But the congratulations will rightly be going, you know, to the likes of Walsh, who pulled off some on-field heroics. But behind the scenes pulling the strings is coach Michael Maguire. He put the players through an army-style boot camp pre-season. There were calls for him to be sacked earlier this year, and now he's delivered them a drought-breaking premiership. Where does this seed him in title-winning coaches, do you think?
Among the modern coaches, he's now taken a further step up the ladder in a big way, because it wasn't just about winning for a different club. I mean, not too many coaches coast premierships at different clubs. And of course, he ended the most, I think, storied of premiership droughts in the NRL when he led South Sydney to victory in 2014. What he did last night was end the most pressured, the most intense, the most headlined premiership drought, because the Broncos are the biggest club in the competition. They've got the best resources. They've been seen to have a star roster which has underperformed. They play at the well-regarded ground for rugby league in the country at Lang Park with massive average crowds all year.
It's been 19 young years, and the trophy's coming back home where it belongs. I can't wait to get back home to Brisbane, to the Premier. Build a bigger stadium, because we sold that one out and we'll sell it out again.
The moment he came in, there was expectation, and the circumstances were quite emotional and dramatic, because this new Brisbane administration, headed up by CEO Dave Donaghy, himself a former CEO of the Melbourne Storm, they went very close in 2023, but at the end of 2024, they made the call. We're sacking a club great. And what are we going to do? We're bringing in a hard taskmaster who not only had won at Souths in his third year, but he also won a Super League premiership with Wigan. And in the rep scene, created an upset win for New Zealand over Australia in the Pacific Championships a couple of years ago, and had led New South Wales to an Origin victory. It was a huge risk, but it's paid huge rewards, because now after 19 years, the Broncos are back on top of the NRL ladder.
It's quite the coaching CV for Madge, and he was coaching against another man who has quite the impressive coaching CV in Craig Bellamy. So on the other side of the brilliance of the Broncos is the disappointment for Melbourne Storm, who, despite conceding the first try, kind of jumped the Broncos in the first half after that, and they led by 10 points at the break. They then didn't score in the second half. What happened, Q?
Obviously, the fatigue came into the game 3 minutes into the second half. Storm's leading 22-12, and replacement forward Tui Kamikamica fumbles the ball over the try line.
Kamikamica, he gets a grab of the footy. Does he get it down? He's claiming it.
He's dropped the ball, and Reece Walsh was there.
He should have grounded that. It should have been 26-12 kick to come. And that might have been a bridge too far. And only 3 minutes after, Gehema Shibasaki scores to make it 22-16, and the comeback is on.
Reynolds to the left, gives to Mann, onto Shibasaki. Shibasaki for the corner. He slammed it down, and referee Atkins says, try Brisbane. So what could have been 4 points for Melbourne at one end, only for the Kamikamica fumble. Now Brisbane get to the northern end, and Shibasaki scores.
I think obviously the displacement of Howarth with his groin injury, the problems around Alec McDonald, that didn't help the Storm, but I don't think they fell in a heap. Brisbane certainly won it from them.
Big pass from Katoa, intercepted in the middle of the field by Ricky, and Maguire is the Messiah. The 19-year drought for the biggest club in the NRL is broken.
As ever, it's not a grand final, Poppy, without a little bit of refereeing controversy. And interestingly today, Reece Walsh, the Churchill medalist, has been indeed fined for the high tackle on Xavier Coates.
There's a high shot here.
There's a real high shot from Reece Walsh.
Tackle three. I know.
He looked like he was buckling a little bit, Xavier Coates.
No doubt whatsoever, if that contact had been made in the first 10 rounds of the season, Walsh would have gone to the sin bin. But as the season has gone on, that crackdown on that nature of high contact has been more so penalised and then left after for the match review rather than sin binned during the game. But, Storm fans will be able to talk about that as, another big moment in the game for the guy that, as we've spoken about, he was the difference in the end, Reece Walsh. And it was a flashpoint moment and the rub of the green went the Broncos' way.
This is the Storm's second grand final loss in a row, and their key playmakers aren't getting any younger or less injured. Harry Grant spoke after the loss about turning their attention to next year immediately.
We can't get back here tomorrow, so but what we do tomorrow can certainly help. So Yeah.
But Munster and Hughes are both in their early 30s. We saw Pappenhausen get run down late when maybe a couple of years and a couple of injuries ago he'd have burned his way to the try line. Where to now for the Storm, who continue to compete without converting?
Yeah, it's really a really good question. And, Pappenhausen is signed for next year, but hasn't been secured for the Storm beyond that. If he stays a rugby league player, I think he'll stay at the Storm, the Flying Mullet. But the thing is, this R360 competition, which is starting to really rumble. Pappenhausen is a target there. Cam Munster's 31, Jerome Hughes is 30. Harry Grant's going to be a good player for a long time, and he is a superstar. But the Storm also have a very talented young player called Jonah Pezzett, who's been on the edge of the squad. So there is a replacement ready to go there. I think, Poppy, do we ask the question, do we dare doubt that the next wave is going to be able to fill their shoes? I mean, I've learnt when it comes to doubting Craig Bellamy, because we thought, you can't replace Billy Slater, you can't replace Cooper Cronk, Cameron Smith, and all of these types of guys. But what did they do? Munster, Pappenhausen, Grant, Hughes all come along. So it's a proven pipeline there.
Doubt Craig Bellamy at your own peril. Q, before we finish, this wasn't the only grand final yesterday. The Brisbane Broncos women took out the NRLW Premiership, beating the Roosters by 4 points as well. They withstood a late charge from the Roosters as well, largely off the back of a pretty special performance from Mele Hufanga. Can you talk us through the W grand final, which was an epic in itself?
Yeah, Brisbane led 12-0 at half-time, and then the Roosters scored the first 3 tries of the second half to get to the lead.
And this will be a right-hand side shift again for the edge, and Mia Wood scores the try. Make it 3 in a row for the Roosters. Patient build-up, left to right shift, and the Roosters make it 16-12.
And right at the end of the game, that name you mentioned, Mele Hufanga, who's just a bullocking, hard-running centre. She crashed over for a late try.
Comes left-hand side, Broughton now. Hufanga, watch out, danger. She steamrolls 1-2 and goes crashing over. Is she held up? Ref says try, Mele Hufanga. And the Broncos go back ahead.
Really, we had to go to different angles of the replay just to make sure that she'd grounded it. She ended up winning the Karen Murphy medal as the best player on the ground. There was even a bit of a flare-up on full time as well, with both teams coming together in a little bit of an unsavoury instance there. So, yeah, the men, of course, capping off a great day with the women winning earlier. So the Broncos win the double 8 days after the Brisbane Lions had won the AFL, Poppy. I mean, gee, the Sunshine State's going okay when it comes to those things. We're title town up here. Maybe we should get the Olympics in this part of the world in the near future.
It feels like Brisbane are readying themselves for the Olympics with a whole bunch of wins already. Queensland hold the NRL, the NRLW, the Men's Origin Shield as well, and the AFL title. So it is a good time to be a Queenslander. Quentin Hull, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure, Poppy.
Headlines. Staying with rugby league, Trent Liero has been offered a 2-match suspension for a high tackle late in that grand final that saw him sin-binned. For the national sides, the Kangaroos and Jillaroos squads have been announced for their upcoming tours. New men's coach Kevin Walters has picked 7 uncapped players in the 23-man squad, including Mark Nwanganetawase, Gemmet Shebasaki and Reece Walsh. Isaiah Yeo will captain that side, and there are 5 fresh faces for the Jillaroos, including Jocelyn Kelleher and Jessie Southwell. Kezzy Apps and Ali Brigginshaw have been named co-captains. AFL and the trade period has kicked off, and while we're yet to have any actual trades at the time of publishing, we have had some free agent action. Charlie Spargo has officially joined North Melbourne, Jacob Ware has signed with Port Adelaide, and Sam Draper has left the hangar for Brisbane. Speaking of Brisbane, last year it was Joe Danaher, this year it's Oscar McInerney, who's decided to hang up the boots after winning a flag. The Lions' big man played 165 games over a 9-year career. Formula One and McLaren have won back-to-back Constructors' Championships with 6 races to go in the season. George Russell won the Singapore Grand Prix ahead of Max Verstappen and Lando Norris, but the real drama came on lap 1 when Norris overtook teammate Oscar Piastri in bullish fashion, and the Australian was not happy.
Hey, that's not fair. I'm sorry, that's not fair.
Oscar will have the opportunity to review together afterwards. Focus on this race, mate. We can still have a good result here.
Yeah, but if he has to avoid another car by crashing into his teammate, then that's a pretty job of avoiding.
Piastri finished 4th and still leads the Drivers' Championship, but with the constructors all wrapped up, you get the feeling that papaya rules have just changed. Game on. I'm Poppy Penny and this is ABC Sport Daily. Thanks to Channel 9 and Fox Sports for the extra audio used in this episode.
Discover more great ABC podcasts, live radio and exclusives on the ABC Listen app.